What's the latest on the Russia-Ukraine war? We get to the updates as Russia captures more ground. China has the world's fastest rise in dementia. We get you the complete story. All this and more coming up. COVID-19 is making headlines once again. While there is no reason to panic just yet, it is our job to inform our viewers about any risk that they might anticipate at this point. And tonight on Gravitas, we tell you about a new COVID-19 wave that has been spreading. In fact, ringing warning bells of a resurgence of the deadly wave. The world had been, in fact, reeling under the impact of COVID-19. In fact, in Hong Kong, health authorities have warned of COVID-19 activity reaching a peak. Over 30 people have been reported dead. That's the highest reported in about a year in the week through May 3. And as per the recent data provided by the Center for Health Protection, the infection rate has climbed from 1.7% in mid-March to 11.4%. Thus exceeding the peak recorded in August 2024. And the signs have been quite glaring, with the percentage of respiratory samples testing COVID positive in Hong Kong also reaching the highest in a year. In recent weeks, time and again, health officials have constantly warned of a steep rise in infections and of COVID-19 cases spiking drastically. And this is not just in Hong Kong, by the way, also in Singapore, where a number of infections jumped 28%. to over 14,000 in the week through May 3. Daily hospitalization numbers rose around 30%. It's important to note here, Hong Kong and Singapore, two of the biggest cities there, both densely populated, inhabited by millions of people. Reporting a rise in COVID-19 cases, this is of significance. In the past few months, COVID-19 seems to have made a quiet comeback in some regions, even as it changed its nature from being a pandemic to now endemic. Waves of the disease have been swelling periodically. Above all, the rising viral load found in sewage water, topped by COVID-related medical consultations and frequent hospitalizations, signaling a clear pattern, perhaps, that of the virus spreading and fanning fears of what could lie ahead. What explains this sudden spike? Though the world thought it had long bid farewell to COVID-19, according to reports, the increase may be an indication of declining immunity, with authorities urging people to ensure they are vaccinated. But that's not all. Authorities have also repeatedly called on people to have their vaccinations updated, issuing a special reminder to high-risk individuals to get booster shots if they haven't already. Also, there is a discerning shift in the manifestation of the virus. Unlike other respiratory pathogens that tend to be more active during colder months, COVID-19's comeback in the summer months goes in to show that it may be potent enough to affect a large part of the population, even in hotter temperatures. Now, the immediate question is there a cause for concern yet? Singapore's health ministry has said in a statement, I'm quoting, that there is no indication that the variants circulating locally are more transmissible or cause more severe disease compared to previously circulating variants. Which basically means there is no need to press the panic button yet. However, while the resurgence is yet to match the infection peaks seen in the past 2 years, the previous experience tells us that COVID-19 is a virus which is not to be taken lightly and is not predictable. China, the country where the virus allegedly emerged in 2019, is witnessing stark COVID-19 spikes, in fact, almost nearing last summer's peak. A similar situation prevailing in Thailand, where 2 infection cluster outbreaks have been reported, with cases rising after April. This brings us to a key question. Should India be worried? The short answer is no. As per the Ministry of Health and Family Welfare, the country currently has only 93 active cases of COVID-19 and no significant increase reported recently, which means India could very well be immune to the new wave at this point. But can it be said that India will be pandemic-proof in the future? Not quite, especially with the situation evolving in different parts nearby. Given the nature of the virus as well, preparedness always helps, and it's always wise to stay one step ahead. Now's the time to watch out and also take precautions as advised in the local areas as per the experts, and also to stay informed instead of being alarmed. A new chapter of devastation is unfolding in Gaza. Israeli airstrikes have intensified. At least 50 people were killed in Israeli strikes overnight, adding to 143 reported to have been killed the previous day. And this has pushed Gaza's total death toll in the war to more than 53,000.
The situation is really difficult. The targeting was aggressive. It targeted a medical clinic and a dental clinic, a pediatric clinic. Inside it, there was a free clinic for children. The targeting happened at the same time the water supply came. The water supply was coming. The targeting happened around 1 p.m. Some people were passing by on the street. There were martyrs on the ground. The martyrs were indescribable.
In fact, Hamas has called on the international community to hold Israel accountable for what it described as barbaric escalation. But earlier this week, the Israeli Prime Minister reiterated his vow to push ahead with a promised escalation in Gaza. Last week itself, Netanyahu warned that the Israeli military campaign would intensify should Hamas fail to agree on a deal to release the remaining hostages by the time US President Donald Trump finished his tour of the region. And Israel, the new push to capture the besieged Palestinian territory comes as Trump continued with his tour. His trip to the region excluded both Israel and Palestine, but Trump has hinted that the end of his trip could mark a turning point for the region. There had been hope that Trump's visit to the region could help bring back the ceasefire deal or renew aid to Gaza. Trump is due to wrap up his 4-day trip on Friday. The latest wave of strikes, part of Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu's vow to escalate the military campaign there in what he calls a conquest of Gaza. But in Gaza, the humanitarian crisis has only been building up amid the Israeli blockade of the territory, now in its 3rd month.
Famine is worsening in Gaza as dozens of community kitchens, which used to provide 5 lakhs meals a day, have announced to shut down, for they are now unable to continue due to the lack of supplies.
Last week, Israeli officials hinted that the country's plans in Gaza now include the conquest and full military occupation of the entire Palestinian Strip. And this could potentially push Palestinians out of the tiny enclave, a suggestion that was also proposed by Trump in February.
Brothers, we only count on God, not on the visit of Trump or anyone else. We count on God only. We count only on God. May God have mercy on us, and to have mercy on our dead and martyrs, and have mercy on our people.
Since March 2, Israel has halted the entry of food, medication, all other essentials into Gaza, saying that the blockade and the military pressure is intended to force Hamas to free hostages. However, senior Hamas official Bassem Naim has said that Hamas will hold talks with Israel only when aid is let back in. Heavy fighting continues in eastern Ukraine, even as peace talks begin between Kiev and Moscow in Turkey, the first such meeting in over 3 years. But hopes remain low, especially given Russian President Vladimir Putin's absence from the talks on the battlefield. Russia has claimed new gains in eastern Ukraine. Russia says its troops have captured settlements in eastern Ukraine, pushing deeper towards key parts like Pokrovsk, Sloviansk. But Ukraine's military has not confirmed these claims. In fact, according to war trackers, Russian troops were repelled in Torsk. In fact, Ukraine has reported that battles have been raging all along the 1,100-kilometer front. On Friday, the Russian Defense Ministry released a video showing Russian forces raising the Russian flag in another settlement in eastern Donetsk. And Ukraine's top military commander, meanwhile, says Ukraine is fighting active battles along 1,100 kilometers of the front line. He says that in Russia's war of attrition, it has deployed up to 640,000 troops. Remember, Russia currently holds 20% of Ukraine as the war drags on. Since abandoning its early attempt to seize Kiev in 2022, Russia has focused on capturing Donbas. But while it has taken villages gradually, Ukrainian forces say they are holding lines near Pokrovsk. Meanwhile, talks between Ukraine and Russia concluded in Turkey on Friday. Negotiators from both the countries met in Istanbul and were hosted by the Turkish foreign minister. And he said he hopes these talks lay the groundwork for a possible summit between the leaders. According to reports, the talks lasted well under 2 hours and there was no apparent sign of progress. According to Reuters, Ukraine has dismissed Moscow's demands as non-starters, and we are still waiting for word from the Russian side. And as they met, US President Donald Trump said he will be meeting Putin as soon as we can set it up, quote unquote. Already, Ukraine's president has criticized Russia as unserious. It's because Putin announced that a low-level delegation led by his aide, Vladimir Bendinsky, would take part. Putin has indicated that he regards the talks as a resumption of the 2022 negotiations held in Istanbul soon after the Ukraine war started. Zelensky, who had previously ruled out any talks with Moscow, has also only agreed to attend the talks following Trump's announcement of his support for the talks. But instead of going to Istanbul, Zelensky went to Ankara, where he had direct talks with President Erdogan. The Russian president's spokesman has claimed that Putin is not planning to personally take part in the talks with Ukraine in Turkey. Kiev's delegation is headed by Defense Minister Rustem Umerov. Meanwhile, the US is closely watching from the sidelines. We say that because US President Donald Trump has said that peace is unlikely without a face-to-face meeting with Putin. He says he is ready to meet in Turkey as soon as something happens. And Europe is already doubtful. European leaders meeting in Albania remain skeptical. UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer has said that Putin is not serious about peace. Meanwhile, the NATO Secretary General criticized Russia for the fact that Russia sent a low-level delegation to delay real progress. Remember, we've told you, behind closed doors, the US has reportedly floated a ceasefire proposal that includes recognition of Crimea as Russian territory, something that Kiev strongly opposes, but Putin appears unmoved. Russia has so far refused to commit to the said US ceasefire proposal, and now with Russian forces advancing and Ukraine running low on weapons, it looks like the balance on the battlefield will ultimately shape what happens at the talking table. And with neither side showing much willingness to compromise, and America pushing for direct talks between Trump and Putin, any immediate breakthrough looks unlikely. But with the battlefield blazing, all eyes are on Istanbul. Shifting focus for now, a social media post by a former FBI director has triggered a high-level US federal investigation. The US Secret Service and the Department of Homeland Security have launched parallel probes into an alleged threat directed at US President Donald Trump. Ex-FBI Director James Comey shared an image on Instagram. It featured seashells arranged to form the number 8647. In his now deleted Instagram post, Comey called it a cool shell formation on my beach walk, quote unquote. But 8647 is not just an ordinary number. It can mean a lot of things. In American slang, the number 86 means to eliminate or get rid of someone, and 47, that's how many presidents the United States has had, with Trump being the 47th president. Comey deleted the post soon after the backlash erupted. In fact, let's tell you, insisting he just liked the shell pattern and had no idea the numbers had any association with violence. But many are not buying it because Comey has a past with Trump. In his first term as president, Trump fired Comey as FBI chief in 2017, remember. Comey had, at the time, initiated investigations into potential links between Trump's 2016 campaign and Russia. U.S. Congressman Andy Ogles called the post a coded message calling for the assassination of Donald Trump. Ogles also demanded answers, like, does Comey still hold access to classified material or security clearances? Meanwhile, the FBI Director Akash Patel weighed in, confirming communication with the Secret Service and assuring FBI's full cooperation in the matter. Meanwhile, U.S. Homeland Security Secretary took to X, stating that Comey called for the assassination of Trump and adding that the U.S. Homeland Security and Secret Service are investigating the matter. Our next story is about a birthday celebration. No ordinary one. And whose birthday are we talking about? US President Donald Trump. And why is the celebration making headlines? What's the plan? What will Trump's birthday bash look like? Well, it is set to be a grand one. In fact, it will be a twin celebration of Donald Trump's birthday and the Army's 250th anniversary. How much will the celebration cost? A whopping $25 million to $45 million. That's what U.S. officials have told Reuters. 2 U.S. officials told Reuters, on condition of anonymity, that the eventual cost could be as high as $45 million. And just to break down the costs involved and put things in perspective, one of them said the cost included several million dollars more than it would have without a parade. Very significant. Several million dollars more. Now imagine as many as 25 tanks rolling through Washington. It's going to be a grand affair, to say the least. The Reuters report says that the U.S. Army had long been planning to move troops and equipment to the National Mall in Washington on June 14 as part of its anniversary celebration. And the plans now include a parade, since that coincides with Trump's birthday. It is his 79th birthday. The thing is, there has been criticism when Trump has been on a cost-cutting spree. Critics have called a parade an authoritarian display of power that is wasteful, as per the Reuters report. Also, there is history to this. Let's look at what happened during Trump's first administration. He ordered the Pentagon to look into a display of military might, and that exercise would have cost $90 million. You know what he chose instead? An exhibition instead of a parade of tanks and other armored vehicles during a July 4 celebration in 2019. So what else is known about the celebration this time? The Army is planning on sending about 24 M1 Abrams tanks for the celebration. It's going to be a grand bash. Reuters earlier reported that the plan included more than 6,500 troops, about 150 vehicles, 50 aircraft moving to Washington. And the US is overhauling its air warfare arsenal. President Trump has revealed his wishes for cutting-edge warplanes. He called them F-22 Super and F-55. The president made this announcement in Doha. Listen to this.
and our Air Force will soon have the world's first and only sixth-generation fighter jet, the F-47. But we're also looking at an increased version of the F-35. I think we're going to call it the F-55, which will be a double-engine plane. I like two engines on a plane. I'm sorry if I say that.
Trump made those comments while flanked by the Boeing CEO and GE Aerospace CEO. And this marks the sale of Boeing airliners and GE Aerospace engines to Qatar Airways. His comments also following the recent awarding of the F-47 air dominance platform contract to Boeing. But such major multi-billion-dollar endeavors are not pulled from thin air. Trump's remarks suggesting some legwork may already be underway. F-35 Lightning II is one of the most lethal, survivable and connected fighter aircraft in possession of America. This fifth-generation stealth fighter brings together air-to-air precision, ground strike power and next-gen technology in one sleek package. With global reach and unmatched versatility, the F-35 is not just a fighter, it's a force multiplier. Moreover, it can achieve speeds of Mach 1.6. Reports say development of the F-35 Block 4 upgrade is in the works. Its foundational element, the Tech Refresh 3, is in flight test. The program does not call for adding a second engine, however, which will require a radical redesign of the F-35. A double engine will make F-35 much heavier and likely less maneuverable and shorter-ranged fighter aircraft. It will effectively be an all-new aircraft requiring extensive design and development, likely at a cost of tens of billions of dollars. And the result will be a direct competitor to Boeing's F-47 next-generation air dominance fighter, but probably without the F-47's extremely low observable characteristics. Experts say the proposed F-55 could be a reference to the program which aims to replace the U.S. Navy's F-A-18 Super Hornets in the 2030s. The two-engine reference suggests it is distinct from the single-engine F-35, which is currently undergoing a delayed software upgrade. The F-22 Raptor is one of the most advanced air superiority fighter jets. The Silent Phantom does not evade radar but goes past it. So much so, enemies never know when they are hunted until the kill shot lands. Its sensor fusion turns the pilot into an all-seeing hunter. The F-22 Raptor slices the sky at 1.5 plus Mach without afterburners. 6 MRAMs, 2 sidewinders, a 20mm cannon tucked inside, keeping it stealthy until the kill switch flips. Trump has called for an upgrade to its Lockheed Martin F-22 Raptor, called F-22 Super. Reports indicating the F-22 is being fitted with advanced missiles, infrared targeting pods, stealthy fuel tanks, advanced electronics, other improvements, and this will keep it credible as well as capable. The upgrade program has no specific name. The announcement comes even as internal disagreements remain between the Navy, the Congress and the administration over the future direction of the program. Any substantial upgrade to the now out of production F-22 would come at a significant cost, but many are skeptical as the warfare is rapidly changing around the world. Drones are becoming a much more deadly weapon. Trump's confidant and SpaceX owner Elon Musk has said that the US should invest in drones. He has argued that drones, particularly those powered by AI, will be crucial in future warfare and that the US should be at the forefront of this technology. Summers bring a craving for ice cream, especially, but in the UK, it could mean a hit to your wallet. thanks to a key ingredient, coconut oil, that is getting costlier by the day. Coconut oil, a key ingredient of industrial-made gelatos, is witnessing a record rise in prices every month so far in 2025. And further price rise is likely as demand seeks to outstrip supply. There is a churn in the global commodity market. In Southeast Asia, bad weather has reduced coconut production, thus tightening the market of the coconut oil delivered in Europe. The price for the Filipino coconut oil rose above $2,700 a metric ton, nearly double from a year ago, and roughly 200% higher than the average in 2000 to 2020. And this topples the previous record set in 2011 at about $2,300. You see, the production status of coconuts and its implications, ripping into coconut oil, is understandable, but how is it connected to ice cream after all? Well, coconut oil is a handy ingredient for ice creams because of its high melting point, helping to keep gelatos solid for longer at room temperature without actually affecting their flavor and the texture. And same is the case with coconut fat, featuring in most ice creams, especially those that are dairy-free or vegan, as a binding element for the gelato. And this only goes on to show the codependence of seemingly unrelated commodities in global markets. In fact, the ice cream industry is fairly huge, generating almost $80 billion in sales worldwide only last year. Given the magnanimity of this business, it is essential for all its elements to fall in place, which means impact on one thing impacts the product in whole. So if your ice cream seller is charging you more, if the prices are bound to go up this summer, you know why. The European Union is accusing TikTok of violating its Digital Services Act. TikTok allegedly failed to maintain a public advertisement repository that is now mandatory under the EU's Digital Services Act. European Union regulators have officially charged TikTok for breaching the EU's Digital Services Act. If found guilty, TikTok could be slapped with a massive fine running into billions. Reports suggesting the short video platform could face hefty fines of up to 6% of its global revenue. EU's Digital Services Act requires all online platforms to publish ad repository. And this repository is important to help researchers and users identify scam ads and understand how platforms' online advertising actually works. The report also states that TikTok failed to provide sufficient information regarding the content of the ads, the targeted audience, and the sponsors behind them. TikTok has responded to the charges, stating that while it supports the goals of the regulation, it disagrees with how the European Union is actually interpreting certain aspects of the law. TikTok also criticized the process, arguing that it is receiving feedback through preliminary findings rather than clear public guidelines. It's important to note here that TikTok is under a separate EU investigation related to risk management during elections. And for now, TikTok has the opportunity to review the Commission's findings and submit a written response as well. On to China now. It is facing what could become one of the most alarming public health crises of this century. A staggering rise in dementia cases. You heard that right. And according to a new global study, China has the fastest growing dementia burden in the world. In 30 years, in fact, dementia cases in China have tripled. Whereas in 1990, China had around 4 million people diagnosed with dementia. That number has surged to 17 million in 2021. And if the current trends hold, it could skyrocket to 115 million by 2050. That's nearly 2/3 of the global projected dementia cases by mid-century. While global dementia cases have doubled between 1990 and 2021, China's number far outpacing the rest of the world. Why exactly is this happening? The research led by scientists at the Fudan University and published in the journal PLOS ONE does not pinpoint a single cause, but it does highlight key risk factors like diabetes, obesity and smoking, all on the rise in China. Almost half of all Chinese men smoke, one of the highest rates globally. The highest number of dementia cases is seen in the 80 to 84 age group, especially among women. But researchers say China's aging population alone does not fully explain the surge. Unless urgent and effective public health interventions are rolled out, the study warns the crisis will only get worse. By 2050, dementia could affect 152 million people globally, and China will bear the brunt of it. With a rapidly aging population and rising chronic disease rates, dementia may soon become one of China's most severe health and economic challenges. Our sun has sent out the strongest solar flare of 2025, and it sparked radio blackouts across Europe, Asia, West Asia. But scientists say this is just the beginning and warn of more severe consequences as the sun emits powerful bursts of energy. Our next story, getting you the details.
The sun has spoken with a warning. On May 13th, our star erupted with the most powerful solar flare of the year. An absolute monster that sent shockwaves across the solar system. This is the latest image captured by NASA. Classified as X-class, the flare is the most intense and is part of a growing trend as the sun nears the peak of its 11-year activity cycle. These violent eruptions are becoming more frequent and powerful. According to NASA and NOAA, more flares and geomagnetic storms could hit Earth in the coming weeks. While the world watched auroras dance in unusual latitudes, experts warned this is just the start of intense solar flares. But the real danger may still be ahead, with more powerful flares on the way. As scientists caution, the sun is entering the peak of its 11-year cycle. Many experts warn that humanity is woefully unprepared for a truly catastrophic solar storm. Experts warn that a flare on the scale of the 1859 Carrington event could fry satellites, cripple power grids, and even trigger nuclear plant malfunctions and plunge entire continents into darkness. Despite repeated warnings, global infrastructure remains exposed. There are few backup systems for GPS, aviation, or grid control. Governments are yet to invest in robust solar weather forecasting or harden critical systems against electromagnetic pulses. As the sun's fury grows, so does the risk. The question is no longer if, but when the next solar superstorm will strike, and if Earth will be ready to face the darkness.
For decades, scientists have pondered over what lies on the dark side of the moon. We kept wondering what answers lie hidden beneath the surface. And now data from NASA's twin robotic spacecraft finally peeling out some of the moon's deepest secrets. Take a look.
One side of the moon always gazes at us, calm, familiar, and filled with dark plains. The other remains hidden, rugged and scarred. Why does Earth's closest celestial neighbor wear such different faces? For centuries, this question puzzled astronomers, poets, and dreamers alike. Now, a groundbreaking NASA study has peeled back the moon's outer shell to reveal the answer, and it lies deep within. Using gravity data from twin NASA spacecraft, scientists have discovered massive structural differences under the moon's crust. The far side, battered and mountainous, is underlain by a thicker, colder crust rich in radioactive elements. In contrast, the near side, the one we see, has a thinner crust, allowing ancient volcanic activity to create the smooth, dark plains known as Maria. This new insight confirms what scientists have long suspected. The two hemispheres didn't just evolve differently on the surface. They were born with different internal characteristics. These findings are not just solving a mystery of lunar geography, but reshaping our understanding of how the moon and potentially other planetary bodies evolved. The finding shows how little we know about our closest celestial body. India's Chandrayaan missions have contributed crucial data to lunar exploration, while NASA's Artemis program plans to put humans back on the moon, aiming to explore these very contrasts firsthand. China is also sending newer probes to the lunar surface and plans to set up a nuclear reactor in collaboration with Russia. As the moon prepares to welcome new explorers, its ancient secrets continue to emerge, one discovery at a time. Bureau Report, WION, World is One.
And on that note, it's a wrap on this edition of Gravitas Tonight. This is me, Molly Gambhir, signing off. Thanks very much for watching. Have a good weekend.
Ready to dive into your daily dose of news?
Bringing you what's trending in the West and all that's setting trends in the East.
And all of this served up with a side of insightful banter.
We don't just bring you the latest stories.
We bring you your talking points for the day.
And while you do that, from the busy streets of New York, I will provide you with deeper insights on the developments through the course of the day in the U.S.
The show that keeps you ahead of the global curve. A conversation you'd want to be a part of. A place where news becomes an engaging exchange.
We bring you stories that impact your present.
This is World DNA. Join the conversation.
This week on the West Asia Post, Saudi Arabia rolls out the lavender carpet to welcome US President Donald Trump. Not only did Trump sign billion-dollar deals in Riyadh, he also lifted crippling sanctions on Syria.
We're going to have to make a decision on the sanctions, which we may very well relieve. We may take them off of Syria because we want to give them a fresh start.
Also on the show, we talk about PKK's decision to end its 40-year insurgency in Turkey and the growing condemnation against Netanyahu's Gaza operations.
Watch the West Asia Post with me, Redi Francis, at these times only on WION, World is One.
Imagine a world where owning your dream asset is just a click away, where wealth is no longer exclusive to the few. Tokenization, the game changer, transforming assets into digital opportunities. A revolutionary technology opening doors to a new era of investment. Don't miss Token Money Magnet, a bold initiative by Kalp Foundation. Only on Beyond World is One.
हमने आतंकवादियों को मिट्टी में मिलाने के लिए भारत की सेनाओं को पूरी छूट दे दी। ऑपरेशन सिंदूर ने आतंक के खिलाफ एक नई लकीर खींच दी है, एक नया पैमाना, न्यू नॉर्मल तय कर दिया।
This week on Tech It Out, we fly into the battlefield to see how drones are redefining modern warfare. We also explore whether a solid-state air conditioning system could be the future of cooling. And we plug into the UK's first quantum satellite station, a game changer that could make cyber attacks a thing of the past. This and more on WION World is One at these times.
Hello and welcome. You're watching WION World is One. My name is Mohammed Saleh, and let's start this broadcast by taking a quick look at what is making headlines at this hour. In their first direct talks in over 3 years, Russia and Ukraine discussed the possibility of a ceasefire and agreed to exchange about 1,000 prisoners of war. The leaders of France, Germany, Poland and the United Kingdom call it unacceptable that Russia has again ignored a European and the US call for a ceasefire in Ukraine. The Polish Prime Minister Donald Tusk says that the Russian position can hardly be called constructive. India's fight against terror is now a part of the National Defence Doctrine, says the Indian Defence Minister Rajnath Singh as he addresses the Air Force officials and the soldiers. The Bhuj Air Base was amongst those that had come under attack from Pakistan. The Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu has warned of more bombings to come on the Palestinians. This after Israel bombed Yemen's port city of Hodeidah as well. The health authorities say that the Israeli strikes in Gaza have killed more than 250 Palestinians in just the last 24 hours, in one of the deadliest days of bombardment by the Israelis since the truce was unilaterally ended by Netanyahu. The President Donald Trump has said that he doesn't know if Netanyahu can get all hostages out. The man convicted of stabbing Author Salman Rushdie in 2022 has been sentenced to serve 25 years in prison. This after the 27-year-old was found guilty of attempted murder and assault in February. The former Chad Prime Minister and opposition leader Success Masra has been arrested on charges of inciting hatred linked to the deadly clashes on Thursday. Lights out, sirens blaring, the Pakistani radars had scrambled for answers in the dark. But the real threat was already in the sky. It was unstoppable, it was invisible, and it was supersonic. Our next story takes a close look as to how on the intervening night of the 9th and the 10th of May, the Indian Air Force had unleashed the BrahMos missile. And the world saw a new era of supersonic air warfare. Take a look.
It began with a flicker on a radar screen. Then silence. And moments later, impact. In the dead of the night, India unleashed its most formidable weapon. The BrahMos, supersonic, precise, unstoppable. Operation Sindoor wasn't just a military response. It was a statement, a warning, and for Pakistan, a nightmare. Pakistan's Chinese-made radar systems never stood a chance. According to ANI, Indian dummy drones flew in first. Decoys that mimicked fighter jets confused enemy radars. Once exposed, kamikaze drones swooped in, disabling air defenses with surgical strikes.
It is a cat and mouse game, and you have to be ahead of the curve to beat your adversary. So that is what is going to happen. So if you ask, was this different? Was this engagement different? Definitely it was different. And a lot of new aspects have come out, but we were prepared for it, we were trained for it, and we were equipped for it.
As Pakistani air defenses scrambled in panic, BrahMos missiles followed in silence. Sargodha, Rahim Yar Khan, Skardu, and Jacobabad are among the 11 major Pakistani air bases damaged in Indian strikes. Each was struck with chilling accuracy. According to ANI's report, about 15 BrahMos missiles were unleashed by the Indian Air Force with an aim to disrupt Pakistan's ability to launch aircraft and other operations. With Pakistan's air power crippled, along with BrahMos, Indian forces unleashed Scalp, Rampage and Crystal Maze missiles. Loitering munitions and laser-guided bombs tore through hardened shelters.
सिर्फ 20-25 मिनट के भीतर सीमा पार लक्ष्यों को भेदना, बिल्कुल पिन पॉइंटेड टारगेट्स को हिट करना, ये सिर्फ एक मॉडर्न टेक्नोलॉजी से लैस प्रोफेशनल फोर्स ही कर सकती है। आपकी स्पीड और प्रिसीजन इस लेवल की थी कि दुश्मन हक्का बक्का रह गया।
A gaping crater now marks the center of Rahim Yar Khan's runway, proof of a strike no denial can erase. Pakistani military systems fired, but at shadows. India's real warplanes came low and fast, invisible to conventional radars, and staying well on the Indian side. It was modern warfare. So what about Pakistan's response? Wild launches, panicked scrambling, and eventual silence. China's tech, touted for years by Pakistan as a counter to Indian might, lay exposed. The HQ-9 radar network, the very spine of Pakistan's air defense grid, was reduced to twisted scrap.
और हमारे ड्रोन्स, हमारी मिसाइलें उनके बारे में तो सोचकर पाकिस्तान को कई दिन तक नींद नहीं आएगी.
The Indian Air Force didn't just fire, it filmed. Thermal signatures, real-time drone feeds, aligning with satellite images, all presented in a clinical evidence-backed briefing by the Indian Defence Forces. In contrast, Pakistan's military presser offered bluster, blurry slides and zero proof. Pakistan's humiliation is now playing out in real time. Its Chinese-supplied arsenal failed. Its military doctrine failed. Only one system truly worked. India's BrahMos. India didn't just retaliate, it redefined modern air warfare. Bureau Report, WION The World.
Let's now get you some news alert that's just come in, where Israel has carried out more bombings on Yemen's ports today. The Israeli Air Force has now struck the Hodeidah and the Salif ports in Yemen. Israel has claimed responsibility for these bombings, and the Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu has warned Yemen's Houthi rebels that there is more to come after the Air Force struck two Houthi ports following the missile attacks. Now, a video statement, Netanyahu has said, and I quote him here, "Our pilots now hit successfully two terror ports belonging to the Houthis. This is a continuation and there is more to come, and we are not willing to sit on the sidelines and let the Houthis attack us. We'll hit them far more, including their leadership and all their infrastructure that allows them to hit us." But the IDF has warned twice this week to evacuate the Houthi-controlled Ras Isa, Hodeidah and the Salif ports on the western coast of Yemen following several ballistic missile and drone attacks on Israel by the Houthis. So this, of course, is the latest of what is happening, where the Israelis have again gone on a rampage, bombing the ports of Yemen. And according to reports that have come in, the Israelis have bombed the Hodeidah and the Salif port in Yemen. The Israelis have claimed responsibility for this attack, and Netanyahu has warned Yemen's Houthis that there is more to come after the Air Force, in fact, bombed these ports in Yemen. And earlier we spoke with renowned war historian Tom Hooper, who delivered a pretty scathing critique of Pakistan and also its defence forces. Now, Cooper stated that Pakistan's air defence systems were completely dismantled by the Indian strikes, raising some serious concerns about the country's preparedness and also its resilience. He further went on to question Pakistan's capability to even protect its strategic nuclear installations. Listen in to what he had to say.
Firstly, there is obvious inability of Pakistani armed forces to protect its nuclear weapons facilities or nuclear facilities in general from Indian attacks. This is of particular importance because Pakistani generals have defined a number of red lines, a number of scenarios in which they would deploy nuclear weapons in the case, for example, India withdrawing from the Indus Water Treaty, in the case of Indian armed forces advancing deep into Pakistan, or in the case of India destabilizing Pakistan politically or blockading Karachi, for example, port of Karachi, and those badly damaging Pakistani economy. And then it turns out now that Pakistan is not sticking to its own red lines because India has crossed at least two of these and nothing happened. Indian armed forces have damaged the Pakistani armed forces so badly that these cannot protect their own nuclear facilities. Even more so that they cannot be sure that they might manage to pull out some of their stored nuclear warheads, bring them to their bases, install them on aircraft or on ballistic missiles. Indeed, India found itself in a position to strike absolutely with absolute safety selected targets inside Pakistan. no matter how far away from Indian border. And this meant that Pakistani armed forces were unable to protect the country even from such attacks. So the situation was threatening to become even ever more problematic for Pakistan. That is why they have requested ceasefire. India has not accepted a ceasefire, but said it is going to stop its operation. But it is constantly, since 10th of May, it's constantly carefully monitoring situation inside Pakistan, especially any kind of major movements at nuclear facility. Generally, the Pakistani nuclear command system was assessed as comparable to that of any other nuclear powers, which means that there are some 20 different points from the famous red button and the actual person who is then launching the weapon or installing it on an aircraft or on a ballistic missile and then firing it. But as said, it was also so that before this war, Pakistani integrated air defense system was assessed as very strong, and Pakistani Air Force was assessed as very strong, and Pakistani armed forces in general were assessed as very strong, and now it turns out no, they have been dismantled in a matter of 90 hours. Therefore, actually, we need to completely reassess this Pakistani nuclear command system. We have to check who is really in command at what level, and this is something that is probably going to busy me as well as even more other people over the next days and weeks, because we have to find out who is really in control of what and who has the final say over what, because it appears presently the Prime Minister of Pakistan is actually little else but somebody who is climbing on some tank and declaring victory, although it is obvious there is absolutely nothing to talk about victory, in at least not in Pakistan.
The call to boycott Turkey is growing louder across India, gaining momentum after Ankara's open support to Pakistan during Operation Sindoor. A tipping point was when the Indian authorities revoked the security clearance of Siliguri Aviation. The Turkish company operates ground services at 9 major Indian airports. This move has been widely seen as the first major policy response to Turkey's alignment with Pakistan. But now the pushback is not just official. It's economic and it's also very local. In Rajasthan's Udaipur, marble traders, as part of one of India's biggest stone processing hubs, have stopped all imports from Turkey. And that's a major development given that Turkey supplies nearly 70% of India's imported marble. Now, India's Maharashtra is echoing the same sentiment. The apple traders in Pune city have stopped sourcing Turkish apples. Instead, they're now turning to Himachal Pradesh and Iran to source apples. Many say that this is just the beginning of a much larger shift. In Uttar Pradesh's Ghaziabad, fruit traders are boycotting Turkish apples and other imports.
Turkey's apple trade in India is worth around 12 to 1400 crores, and there are 2 to 3 other fruits also imported. Since Turkey supported Pakistan, we have decided to cut all business ties with them. We don't want any country benefiting from trade with India and then using it against us. We are now boycotting all fruits imported from Turkey and will not engage in any business with them.
Now, across markets and trade associations, there is a growing chorus. Ban Turkey public outrage intensified after Indian Army briefings on Operation Sindoor revealed evidence of Turkish-made drones used by Pakistani military.
Forensic examination of the drone debris is being undertaken. Preliminary reports suggest them to be of Aziz Guard Songa drone of Turkey.
So as diplomatic tensions rise, India's message is pretty clear. Support to its adversaries will of course come at a cost, and with every halted shipment and suspended deal, India is escalating the economic cost to Turkey. The peace is returning to Jammu and Kashmir's Poonch after days of tensions along the line of control. Displaced residents of Salatri's village, the last village on the line of control, are now returning back to their homes after the ceasefire understanding between India and Pakistan. The village was deserted after intense shelling claimed the lives and damaged homes, but now families are back thanks